All right, good afternoon on my side of the world. I want to come on here and share just a couple of things. One, I wanted to talk about why it's important to have an overall healthy diet, not a restricted diet, but just an overall balanced, healthy diet. And what does that have anything to do with healing? What does that have anything to do with transformation? And I'm going to share a bit of my story and how it goes hand in hand and how everything is connected. And two, I want to talk about the amazing mirror effect, how that has transformed my life and allowed me to love more, allowed me to take my former walls down, allowed me to allow the old self take a rest and to allow my true self to come forth. So the first topic I want to talk about is why, what's the significance about eating whole, eating what makes your body feel good. If you haven't, followed my story, if you don't know, I had been I had been overweight for a very long time. I would say, it's kind of started around after high school. I would say that's when the weight skyrocketed. And to shorten the story, I recognized that I had battled with, or always thought about my weight. I knew that I was unhealthy weight-wise, and I knew that I was, very lethargic. I knew that I battled with anxiety. I knew that I had something going on wrong with me. I knew all of these things, right? And I just thought that that was just sort of my norm, and I would just sort of just press through and get through it. And when I went on about 6 years ago, what were we in 2022, right? About 6 years ago, when I went on my dark night of the soul, or when I went on my journey to heal, to awaken, it was my divine intervention that I had with God, if you don't know. And basically, I didn't like the way my life was going, and I was desperate to change. And I cried out to God, and God answered me and showed me that all the stuff that was happening in my life was due to my beliefs, was due to what I was holding on to, was due to the internal baggage. And so, and that not only that, but that God was things were going to transform in my life, and I wasn't going to be able to recognize who I was during this transformation. So many other things, and that God had shared with me during that conversation that I had with God, and I'm seeing things unfold. The manifestation of that very conversation that I had with God. And so I recognized that, one, as I was doing my internal work and I was healing, what the things that I used to resort to, I used to resort to eating bad because it was an unconscious thing that I resorted to, not knowing that it was something that I was trying to suppress. If you want to know more about that, if that speaks to you as far as you really understanding and getting a hold of understanding in your relationship with food and where that all comes from, you can definitely go on my website, www.kemiknight.org, and I will definitely send you the information. Is called Why Can't I Lose the Weight? And really it dives further into that. Okay. But in short, I recognized that as I was healing, I could no longer hide. And I recognized that I was hiding. I could no longer coddle, and I recognized that I was coddling. And I was coddling my feelings, coddling my emotions. I was suppressing my feelings, suppressing how I felt. I didn't like myself. I remember trying to harm myself. Never fully committed suicide, but I remember just harming myself with my words, and even harming, sometimes I can remember even harming myself physically, because I just wanted to be out of this body, because I hated what was going on. And I wouldn't say necessarily I didn't hate myself. I hate what was happening, what was going on, what I was feeling, the trauma that I had going on in my body. And I didn't know how to free myself from it. I just knew that I no longer wanted that. So my coping mechanism, or my scapegoat, was food. And I wasn't aware of that. So as God began shining on my journey of healing, and as God began shining light on those shadows in those dark places, that's when I recognized, oh my God, that's why I was resorting to, the unhealthy food, or that's why I would binge eat. And so my relationship with food began changing. And as a result of that, I found that I didn't really want the bad food, or the food that didn't give me energy. I wanted more food that gave me energy, because I wanted to be in alignment with that. And so as a result of that, because I wanted to feel good in my body, I no longer wanted to be captive of my body, be captive of my emotions, be captive of my mental state. I no longer wanted that. Losing weight was the last thing. That's why I say my weight loss is my side effect. Losing weight is my last thing. Once again, I'll go ahead and leave the direct link that you can go to purchase that. Because it's not on my website. It's actually the link that you can directly go to invest in that mini session that I have. But I knew, once again, that my weight loss was my side effect. I knew that my weight loss was my side effect, and the last thing that I desired was to lose weight. I wanted to heal this heart of mine. I wanted to no longer I wanted to end the cycle of feeling captive in my body. And it's nothing like feeling like you're in a prison in your own body. I remember there was so much unlearning and unlearning that I had to do along the way. There was so much unlearning that I had to do along the way. And so much healing, and letting go a lot of the layers. And it was a process for me, as God spoke over me. He said that you were going to go through on a process, and that process was a process of unlearning. Sorry if you guys hear the airplane in the background, but that process was unlearning, and I was willing to unlearn. I was willing to unlearn. And so here I am. And I continue to unlearn. Now let's shift gears a little bit as we talk about the mirror effect. It is everything. It's everything. And when I say the mirror effect, it is more, I'm just going to share a little bit of my story. The mirror effect is really how you view the world, consciously and unconsciously, based out of how you see yourself, how you view the world, how you view your relationships, especially your intimate relationships, or your spouse, your soulmate, your children, how you view those relationships, especially the ones that are really, really dear to our hearts. And I want you to do your own examination, but how you look at those, or whatever keeps kind of triggering you or showing up in your life, is, I would just recommend, I just found it very, very helpful, that the mirror exercise of me reflecting how I look at myself, what beliefs I'm still holding on to in my own mirror, as to how I view my relationships. Does that make sense? So for one example of, backtrack a little bit, God told me that in my conversation and in my encounter, it was basically saying the things that you think you have to be, you're not that. The beliefs that you think you have to hold on to, how you view yourself, how you view me, it's not that. It's not who you are. I'm getting ready to show you who you really are. Okay. So in that mirror exercise, and in my personal encounter, recent encounter, I recognized that there was still part of me, this former self that I had, that I knew, I recognized because it kept showing up in my life. And I kept finding myself being so frustrated with the same situation and feeling powerless, and I recognized that I was still holding on. My wall was still up. I didn't allow my true self to come forth because I was still having that wall of my former self who used to believe that she had to do everything by herself, that really there was no spiritual support that I had, meaning as a child, very briefly, as a child, and this is really can be another topic, but as a child, I can remember feeling that I had a different insight than other people, even my close loved ones, and I would be frustrated because there was things that I was tapped into and I knew that they didn't have the answers to. And I was frustrated, and even in life, just figuring out life, I had support, but as far as my own path, I did a lot of figuring things out on my own. And so there was a part of me that was that wall was up, in a sense of being frustrated because I would have liked more of a spiritual guidance in where I was headed and what my insights, what I was seeing, what was downloading to me. I wanted someone to help me. I wanted someone to support me. And in truth, they did the best that they could, and that is okay. I knew that they did the best that they could, and I also knew that they could no longer assist me or help me in areas that I had questions about. And looking back on that, I recognize that it was for my good, because I learned over time to trust myself. I learned over time to have that intimate relationship with God. I learned over time, once again, to trust my own divine guidance. I learned that if I had the support that I thought that I needed, that I would have relied on their beliefs. And I had my own releasing and letting go that I needed to do in that area of letting go of other people's beliefs, which I talk about in my 12-month program. But I recognize that in me understanding my path, what I know is that it all worked for my good. If I would have had the support, once again, that I thought that I needed, I would have relied on their beliefs. I would have relied on, their agreements, and the amazing path of awakening, that amazing encounter that I had with God, when I talked to God, when I shared with you earlier, that amazing encounter that I had allowed me to follow my own path. Once again, I've always kind of gone against the grain. I've always seen things differently. But having that encounter, having myself be gracefully broken in my life, I recognize that it was for my good. It was for my good. And that mirror effect that I talked about earlier, that oftentimes we have that mirror effect of in our relationships, right? The mirror effect in our relationships that triggers us. For me, how it spoke to me personally, it allowed me to recognize you can let down the wall of the little girl or the young woman, lady who felt as though, she had to keep her wall up, she had to keep her guard up, because there was a level of survival skills that I believe at one point was needed. To have in order to survive. I needed those survival skills during a certain time in my life. to protect myself, to survive, that I believe at that time. And then it just wasn't, the right time to be tapped in, even though I was always in tune to this, always in tune, but not tapped all the way on. And that divine intervention that I had with God allowed me to tune into that divine and direct connection. And as I stay connected, so that those vines fall off. So I know that's a lot of compact information. I hope that this definitely helps. You may want to jot down a pen and paper, and how your own aha moments, and how it reflects, and how it in your life, and what I'm saying, how this relates to you in your life. So once again, I have a 12-month program that I walk people through to help them heal and release the internal weight, as well as the external weight. The reason why I say it's 12 months is because I dive really, really deep in helping you on your journey, helping you unveil and reveal that. So I'll leave the link at the bottom if that sounds like something that is of your interest. Not everybody is ready for that, and that's okay. Only if you're ready, and you know when you are ready, and I know when you're ready. I've helped many people walk through this path, and the ones that actually set themselves free are the ones that never give up, and the ones that believe. Okay, so you gotta believe, you gotta be willing, and you gotta believe. That's it. It doesn't have to be big. You gotta be willing, you gotta believe, and you gotta be willing to invest in yourself, because you matter. You gotta be willing to believe, okay? To never give up, and you have to invest in yourself. You can't just sit on the sidelines. You have to invest in yourself. So that's all I have. I'll leave the links at the bottom.